You are now listening to the Bullseye Podcast, brought to you by AFI Advisors. Sit back, get comfy, and keep all arms and legs inside the vehicle when in motion. And now, here is Josh, Peter, and Brian.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Bullseye Podcast, brought to you by AFI Advisors. This is Josh Shores. I'm Director of Marketing and Development here at AFI. As you can tell, we've kind of upgraded a little bit. We like to brag about our multi-million-dollar studio that we don't have, but we got a pretty good view. The last great Coliseum here. I have Peter Raber with me, President of AFI.
Hello, hello.
And we have Drew Bedard.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Drew.
Absolutely.
Drew, you're the Vice President of Marketing here at Bristol Motor Speedway and the Dragway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's not forget about the Dragway.
Don't forget about the Dragway. That's right.
I was thinking as I was driving up here, I spent numerous years of my childhood in the most hottest, sweatiest environments on that drag strip over there.
Absolutely. Yes. There's a lot of summer days and nights for people over there from NHRA, our NHRA weekend, but actually it's the junior dragsters. We host the Eastern Conference Finals here, and it's a week and a half long event in July. So yeah, it's hot, it's long, it's little kids and parents. So it's basically like, travel baseball, but for little junior dragsters. It's crazy. But that's just one of many things we do here at Bristol Motor Speedway and Dragway.
Well, and that's kind of why we're here today. We're trying to get out, take the show on the road, get a feel for what's going on in our region. Yeah. And there's a lot of really interesting things coming up here at Bristol and have already happened. But I want to take a second and learn a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure.
So when someone asks, "Hey, Drew, tell me something about you," what do you usually tell them? That you have a really cool job?
Yes. Yes, I'm an Aquarius and I like long walks on the beach and all that stuff. And I'm married with 3 children. I usually actually tell people my journey to Bristol. So my interesting journey to get here was I worked for Newell Rubbermaid, which is now just Newell Brands, in the early 2000s. So it was like 2004-ish. And I did a year and a half in field marketing, and then I went to work for the Sharpie brand. Well, the Sharpie brand had the Sharpie 500 here at Bristol Motor Speedway. So after I was done working for Sharpie, I then went to work for a small sports marketing agency in Charlotte that was tasked with taking care of a lot of the Sharpie brand elements here at Bristol. So their hospitality, their suite, their activation in the fan zone, different things like that. So when I got to do that, I did that for 6 years, I got to know a lot of the people up here at Bristol. So when a job came open, my wife's from East Tennessee. She's from just north of Knoxville in Clinton, Tennessee. And we had always said, boy, that would be a good fit. I was kind of in and around and adjacent to the NASCAR industry. We did a lot. 80-90% of our work was in NASCAR when I was at the agency. And the client, Sharpie they were our biggest client. So I was up here at Bristol all the time. And a job came open in late 2010, right after Jeff Bird, who was the president and general manager at the time. He had just passed away, but a position came open up here. And I came and I met with Jerry Caldwell, who's the now president and general manager of Bristol. And they hired me. Thank God. And we came up here and live in Johnson City, but all of it started with Sharpie. It all started with Newell Rubbermaid. That my little stepping stones to Bristol, that's how I got here, was the Sharpie brand, really. And I've been here this is my 14th year. And I've been in marketing for 13 of those 14 years. I was in sales for a year, and then they realized that I was a marketing and brand nerd, and I love marketing. I love the craft of marketing. And I kept bugging the marketing department, and they said, all right, dude, do you want to do sales, or if we gave you a job in marketing, would you want that tomorrow? And before they could finish the sentence, I just said yes. And they said, it's less pay and whatever. I just said, I'm in. I love marketing. I love doing this. And I knew we were right on the precipice in 2011, 2012 of big things happening, because in 2013 we announced the Tennessee-Virginia Tech football game, the Battle at Bristol. I knew these things were coming, and I was like, Bristol's going to be an exciting place to be, and it just all worked out. Again, being in East Tennessee for my wife, and my in-laws live close by, I knew people here. I had relationships built, and so everything worked out. But that's what I usually tell people is my interesting journey from a permanent marker to
Thank you, Sharpie.
Yes.
So you were here then when the last great Coliseum was coined, right?
Yeah, that was actually in advertising. So there's a couple different times that showed up in the history. It was like 2008, so it was right before I got here. They used it as an advertising, a brand campaign to sell tickets literally to the nationwide race at the time, so Xfinity Series race, because there was no Cup tickets available. So they did that as, this whole Roman Coliseum, last great Coliseum theme. Well, a few years later, when I got to be in charge of marketing or in the department of marketing, we brought it back as we should bring this back as a property moniker, use it again, use this whole Roman Empire type thing. And that's what stuck and also we were headed into this time frame with football and other things on the horizon. We have this other property moniker, the world's fastest half mile. And I said, at the time when we were all meeting and talking about it, it was, well, we're going to be a lot more than just a half mile for racing. We're going to be a lot of things in the future. So the last great Coliseum fits a little bit more. But yeah, it kind of came along, it kind of died off, and then we brought it back as a property moniker to kind of encapsulate what we're going to be doing here at the Speedway.
I think it's fabulous. It really does encapsulate exactly kind of what you're talking about, this transition. And because we have seen a big transition just with the ebbs and flows of racing and everything else. And that's been fabulous for not only the racetrack, but for Bristol in general.
Yeah, for the region. I know, I got to learn this early on in my marketing time frame, was that tourism relies on us heavily. So, we would meet with the Bristol and Kingsport and Johnson City Chambers and CVBs all the time to talk about what are we doing to bring people to the area? Because there's, we're a big fish in a small pond when it comes to tourism. So when we introduced the football game in 2013, that was when I think things opened up. And actually, and I know you guys want to talk about the baseball game, is that MLB would not have gotten this idea if it weren't for the football game. They saw us on that platform at 8:00 on ABC with a huge college football game with two huge regional rivals, or, border battle, this sort of thing. But that's how MLB got the idea of, maybe in this Coliseum, this college football stadium or style stadium, that you could do anything in here, and you really can. So,
well, Battle of Bristol, I came with Henry and with my wife, Kate, and it was a tremendous experience. Now, I will say we left after the third quarter.
Understand.
Just try. It's something else when you see, what was that, 156?
Yes, like 160,000 people.
Tennessee had the game wrapped up. We were like, we're good.
Yeah.
But it was a tremendous event.
Yeah, very smart to leave because, yes, traffic was a little heavy after the game. But when you get that mass of humanity here, I mean, it was unbelievable to be a part of, to see. And, we're just glad the weather cooperated that night. And what a great thing for the area.
I think everyone's noticed over the years that there's been a bigger variety of things going on at the Speedway, everything. And it's kind of all over the map. You've got the Christmas lights, you've got monster trucks, you've got concerts, you've got football games. I'm sure I'm missing stuff. But rolling into 2025, what are some of the things that you guys have already done this year? Was there not a concert not long ago?
We had Country Thunder here for 3
years,
years, a music festival that travels around through Canada and through the U.S. They decided to go try another market this year. They may come back in the future. But, concerts from the Kenny Chesney concert before the Battle at Bristol to Country Thunder, where we had Morgan Wallen. Sorry, that was 4 years we did it. Morgan Wallen for 2, Eric Church for 1, and then Brooks and Dunn and Jelly Roll and some others. Anything's possible here. We had a Dude Perfect show one year. In 2021, we had the NASCAR All-Star race in 2020 when, everyone's just kind of coming out of COVID. And obviously Tennessee was on the front end of coming out of COVID and putting people in live venues. We had a Mr. Beast videotaping here, so we couldn't tell anybody about it when he was here, but he came here and did a big hide and seek thing. So we have been open to those ideas. We also, we've kind of coined over the last few years, the home to big events is that we can really do anything. So there's still, we're still wide open for the future on what could be done here. A large soccer game, could there be a WWE event? Could there be a UFC event? Could there be anything? And more football and, whatever else comes our way.
It's really crazy to think that a baseball field
and we're looking down.
I know. You look at it from up here
listening on the podcast.
And it's just, I can't see it. I'm one of those, I have to actually see it. I'm not great at envisioning things. But you guys have some great mock-ups of what the baseball field's supposed to look like. And in case anyone's living under a rock, there's a big baseball game happening at Bristol Motor Speedway. The Atlanta Braves, Cincinnati Reds.
It's going to be tremendous. August 2nd?
August 2nd. Saturday,
Yep.
right? August 2nd. Yep.
So that's really what we wanted to talk about because
Okay.
we're all baseball guys. And who wouldn't want to do it here? So let's dive in. Tell me how, you talked about how MLB kind of saw that model of what BMS did with the college football scene. How did they just call you guys up out of the blue and just say, hey, this is what we're thinking?
Yeah. So where it started was after the Battle of Bristol. I think it was the following year. Jerry obviously is in the lead chair on all of these things. And then our CEO, Marcus Smith, is involved in a lot of these high-level discussions. But MLB kind of called and said, what if? And I think that what if discussion took place for a little while. They started looking at some blueprints and some schematics of, could this be possible? Where could we do it now that we have Colossus TV, which is our big center hung 4-sided screen in the middle? How do we do that? And how do we get around that? And then COVID hit and that discussion sort of died off. So it stopped at that point just because everybody was recovering and MLB had their own challenges. But then in 2022, I think Jerry tells the story that the discussion started again because we were in, and we have a couple people internally here that specifically work on new event development. And they said, well, why don't we call MLB again? And those discussions just started again of let's look at those blueprints again and let's talk about it and think about it. And really, it never stopped from 2022 on. And then, it really kind of got solidified and locked in early 2024. We announced on August 9th, 2024, that this whole thing was going to happen. But it was really just building blocks, right? Just discussion after discussion after discussion, and then getting smart engineers in the room and getting all the marketing people from MLB and how could we do this? And also they're at a time frame, and I think you guys know this, is that they're trying to position the game as faster now, right? More speed. Ellie De La Cruz, Acuna. You look at all of these all-stars that have speed is playing a much bigger element, the pitch clock, everything. So MLB also wanted that positioning, and they said, why don't we, this is perfect timing for us to put a Major League Baseball game in Tennessee that doesn't have Major League Baseball right now. So in a market that is in the middle of a bunch of other markets, and to really put to the forefront the new speed of Major League Baseball, the faster games and the faster players and the faster pitch clock and everything like that.
I never thought of it like that. Yeah. That's really neat.
Yeah. Ronald Acuna, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Total sense.
Sorry, Ronald. I'm sorry, Braves fans. We love you out there. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm a Red Sox fan. So,
well, and I hadn't thought about the speed element. I had thought about the fact that Tennessee doesn't have a baseball team. You know, they keep talking about putting one in Nashville. I could easily see this as being a case study of, that area will support it.
Yeah.
I think the two teams that are selected, we've always said the Tri-Cities is so accessible to so many people. You know, we can be, at the beach, we can be in Cincinnati, we can be in Atlanta, we can be down in Nashville, and we can be that hub, but we've come and gone kind of sometimes with, the intersection of the two interstates. And, when racing, was really at its major heyday, you couldn't find a place here for 2 weekends out of the year. And what I kind of love about the direction that the Speedway is going is it is now a, year-round, potentially big event. And I'm excited. When you said soccer, my first thought too was, man, it'd be cool to have a World Cup game out there. I know we're not going to, they've picked their sites and they're doing their things, but man, that would have been cool. So yeah, it can be tremendous on some of the stuff that could be put out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, but the Major League Baseball game, and yes, we are pretty centrally located for Atlanta and Cincinnati. Obviously, this is more of a Braves market than maybe a Reds market, but it is still, there's a ton of Reds fans there. We were just at Cincinnati at the opening day, and a lot of people excited to come down here. Try something new, go to a NASCAR stadium and watch this thing unfold. But I know a lot of the Braves fans and the regional Braves fans who grew up on TBS watching those games in the afternoon, the Southeast really, that became Braves fans, that people are excited that they're coming to their market, their backyard to have a game here.
TBS, Turner Broadcasting.
That's right. Something starts at 05, right? 105, 205, 705.
I remember growing up, we always got the Braves games.
Yep.
And then we'd get a lot of the Cubs,
WGN.
And even some White Sox thrown in there every once in a while. But those were the predominant ones.
Yeah.
But this has been a historically huge Braves country.
Yes.
Hopefully they'll figure some stuff out on the baseball field before they get here in August, because they've been looking a little rough.
Yeah, they'll be fine once Ronald comes back and they're in a little bit more, and they've got some injuries, but I think once we get to August, and that'll be right after it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the All-Star game in Atlanta. So I think we'll be at a really good place, and the ticket sales are matching that. And we did just announce that we're going to have a pregame concert with Tim McGraw and friends. We don't know what that means yet, but they promised that Tim might be bringing some friends along with him, some famous friends. So we don't know what that's going to look like, but
I can be Tim's friend.
You can be Tim's friend.
I'll be your
play
friend.
Guitar.
I'll be your
sing
friend,
harmonies
Tim.
in the background.
Probably should stick with the guitar. Josh can do the drums, but nobody needs to hear me sing.
Yeah, but another really cool, first of its kind, this Tim McGraw pregame concert. And we have pre-race concerts all the time, but it's just a really exciting place to work. And Speedway Motorsports is in general. Our CEO, Marcus Smith, is innovative. He's open. He's optimistic. He's positive. He's thinking about what could we do with these properties? And he just started a thing called the 10/10ths Club. It's almost like a country club for car owners in Charlotte, right across the street from Charlotte Motor Speedway, which is our home office. And I mean, just again, ideas. And the Smith family, Bruton Smith was obviously our owner. He passed a few years ago, but just like bold, innovative guys. They just thinking about what could we do? What's possible? And with this stadium the way that it is, I know Marcus looks to us a lot of times to say, we could do that at Bristol. So fill in the blank, we could do that at Bristol because of our configuration. So
it makes complete sense if you think about it, because you can't really bank on, a few weekends a year to really cover everything from a financial standpoint.
Sure.
And you've got this amazing facility sitting there all the other days. So
there's not a bad seat in the house.
Yeah, there's really not.
Yeah.
You can see everything here.
Yep.
It just makes complete total sense. So I'm really excited to see some of the other things that you guys roll in here. Like, it would be crazy to watch like a UFC fight.
Right.
Here, could you imagine? That would be outside
or a hockey
wild.
game at some point.
Yeah,
I mean,
hockey would be cool.
You start to scale way down, but again, we have this giant screen in the center. Thankful to our owners for putting that in. Obviously, there's a story that goes along with Colossus TV, a pragmatic story. Obviously, everybody would totally understand is that we were going to have a football game. There was a pylon in the middle of the field, so we couldn't have a pylon in the middle of the field. There were so many different discussions of what type of screen was going to go up, whether we were going to do the end zones and maybe put it above the suites or Wallace Towers at one end. We looked at all these different things, and then Bruton Smith, our owner, said to our engineers, who are innovative and bold as well, but who said, why don't we just do it like an NBA or a hockey arena and just put it in the center? And they were like, I don't know if we can, but engineers put it together, and now we've got this amazing center hung screen. So, but the pylon had to come out. The screens, the original screens had to come out for the football game. So there you go.
One thing I do want to hit on is I'd like to hear kind of from your side, because I'm sure that, you talked earlier about going to a lot of the chambers and trying to get some community buy-in, get tourists here, things of that nature. I'd like to dive into some of like the financial impact that events held here have for not only you all, but for the whole region, because we have a lot of folks who come in, and I'm sure the financial impact, for the local businesses, restaurants, hotels has to be pretty big, right?
Right. And there's so many different estimates. And the last one that we did was before COVID, that it has it at, somewhere in the hundreds of millions of direct impact. And then there's this indirect impact of, somewhere in the low $1 billion of, over time or over a year. But I really think the where the rubber meets the road, or where you really hear it, is when we have community calls and we have community meetings about once a quarter, and we sit down and you can hear it from them of where they're feeling the pinch, basically, of where you hear the hotels or the tourism groups say, hey man, we need some help, or how are your sales going on that? Because our hotels aren't to max yet. Now they usually are. And usually all of our community calls are, man, thank God for having that thing. And obviously ETSU, and you take the other, massive businesses like Eastman in this area. But when it comes to tourism, about bringing people to the area, the Smoky Mountains has their thing. Our thing is Bristol Motor Speedway, and then a few other events. But, when you're thinking about bringing 50, 100,000 people to the area for multiple events a year, that has a huge impact on the restaurants, the hotels in this area. So our community partners are amazing. We love all of the chambers and CVBs. Again, we have these community calls that we lead because we know they need us, but we need them. We need partners in this whole endeavor because they help us market. And you'll see that through Johnson City. Visit Johnson City and explore Bristol and visit Kingsport, and you see their social accounts are tied in with ours really closely, because I actually feed as one of my small parts of my role, but I got to feed out all those graphics and videos to all our community partners, and they're so gracious to share them and really build that momentum as it leads into an event.
The impact, and we would call it, the velocity of money and the multiplier effect and all those things, that us econ nerds get into. But
sure.
It really is, hotels have staff who then employ service people. So, we, as a financial advisor, we're advising people that are here because of the racetrack is providing, their job as a lawyer or as a doctor or
Sure.
whoever it is, because it just grows the community.
Right.
And Bristol really has taken a leadership role here, especially lately, whether it's everything at the Pinnacle or the Hard Rock, or, Rhythm and Roots or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. Or then even on a philanthropic, the Speedway Children's Charities. And then, of course, the devastation from Hurricane Helene, we became the Northeast Tennessee Disaster Relief Center. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's a lot of ways that we can help with this big infrastructure, this big property. And so we try to do that at every chance we get.
It's so important. And, we, I think, take it for granted, especially people who've been here forever. I've been here since '81. So, it's just Bristol's there. The Speedway is what the Speedway is. But there's not a lot of places in the country that have something like this. And it really is something else.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Drew, I was thinking about when I was driving up here, I was talking about old stories and having memories here, and I've had a lot of fun times here. I was curious, though, because you get to see it through a different lens. Do you have an event that has happened or may happen every year that's like your absolute favorite?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's about to happen because I'm a baseball kid and nerd, and I watch my Red Sox every night religiously, and I hope they do better this year. But I think the baseball game is going to be at the top. I know, and this is going to all sound so cliche. The football game was very stressful because we had to put that together. And I was over the screen that night. And I remember there were some stressful parts that went into that. And then there's the massive amount of people. But I also remember it really fondly for just the enormity of the entire thing and the fact that it was able to come together after all this hoping and wishing for so many years. but I will say the Dude Perfect event that we were able to put together in 2021 was probably my favorite because I was very, very involved with putting the whole deal together to get Dude Perfect. So let me tell the story of how Dude Perfect got to come to Bristol Motor Speedway. It was a discussion that we were having with them about potentially coming and filming a video here. And what we went to them with was, okay, like, you guys could either rent the facility and just take it over and do some stuff, or how about this? How about we give you the facility for 2 or 3 days, and in return, you do an event for us on Saturday night. So you get it from Wednesday to Friday. You can film whatever you want, do whatever you want. They ended up doing all these different, crazy driving cone things in the infield. They did a drag strip thing. They did all this different stuff. But we said, could you do that? So we entered into this really unique partnership, and then we had to come up with a show from scratch because they were like, look, guys, we have enough on our plate. We're filming videos. We have sponsors. We got to do all these different things. All their producers behind the scenes. And then we get on. I think the coolest thing was when I was a Dude Perfect fan and we got on our first Zoom with like all the guys. And I was just like, this is awesome. But they really said, you guys are in the driver's seat on the event. You do whatever you want. And we'll come up with 2 or 3 ideas, and we need you to fill in the blanks. So we got monster trucks, and we had all these different elements. So I would probably say that was the one I remember the most fondly, that I'm the most proud of, because we kind of came up with it out of thin air, pitched them an idea of, how about we give you the property for free, and then you do an event for us so that we can make some revenue off of bringing in. And we had a great crowd, and it was just. I remember that really fondly. So
we didn't get to come to the Dude Perfect here, but my son and I have an almost 12-year-old, so we're big Dude Perfect fans.
Yeah.
Dude Perfect, you mentioned Mr. Beast. Yeah. I know, unfortunately, I know all those guys, but Dude Perfect's my favorite.
Unfortunate. It's the stage of life that we're in.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, our kids are glued to iPads.
I do think that out of all of the YouTubers per se, that Dude Perfect's by far my favorite.
Yeah.
I enjoy all of their things. So it was really neat to see them come here and do that. And they've just taken off.
Yeah.
They've really just...
And I don't.
It's like a whole different level.
They might do sort of like a theme park type thing in Texas, and so happy for those guys. And they're such good guys. Like, they're funny and fun and competitive. They're Christian guys. They're just super sweet. They were all very kind to everybody who is here. They're exactly what you'd expect them or hope they would be. And sometimes that doesn't always work out, but. Dude Perfect was all of it. They deserve every bit of success that they have, that they're having and will have in the future, because they're really good people.
I think they're a good example. Mr. Beast is a good example. All these. How has influencer culture changed? You've got legendary racers, obviously. But how for the speedway does that now shift of trying to be out in clips and out in things that. It's a whole new medium of trying to fill.
Yeah, you got to track it. Okay, so I have a bold prediction I'm going to make on this podcast so that we can clip it 5 years from now.
Awesome.
But, okay, so there's a guy in NASCAR right now, and actually he's been a creator and an influencer for years. But he ran a NASCAR race at Daytona this year. He's about to run this weekend at Talladega, so you guys can watch it this weekend and you'll know what I'm talking about. And then he's going to run here at Bristol. He did 2 shows here at Bristol. A guy named Cletus McFarland, who is a big YouTube influencer. His real name is Garrett Mitchell. He's this, of course, it is, really smart guy. Yes, the Cletus McFarland is a character that he plays. But he ran Daytona, and he did this interview, and you guys can go look it up. He did this interview on Fox where he basically sounded like Ricky Bobby from Talladega Nights, and it went crazy viral. And now Talladega was begging him to come. We've got him coming to our Thursday ARCA race, September 11th, and people are going nuts. And what my bold prediction is that if Cletus keeps going up the ranks of NASCAR, he might completely change the model where it is kind of where golf is going these days, is that you've got these guys that are big golf influencers, and now the PGA Tour is having these creator classics. Live Golf just had this big duels event with all of these golf creators, is that, and you've got the Savannah Bananas and you've got the Jesse Coles of the world, is that we might have we're at an inflection point right now where the whole landscape might be shifting to where, say, NASCAR and Cletus McFarland, that he shows up to an event, he brings his own audience with him, which is kind of what the drivers do, but that he's been building this groundswell for years, putting out this automotive creator stuff of all about building cars and working on cars and this car culture. And I think that he is going to be a huge driver of NASCAR attendance in the next few years if he keeps racing cars. And I just think you talk about, okay, what's our play from a marketing perspective on influencers? We're bringing influencers that are sort of NASCAR adjacent to the races, and they do make an impact. I mean, we have people, again, just like we were talking before the show, is that these people are their fans that they get these huge followings. They want to be friends with them. So if they show up to an event, they want to track them and go see them at the event. So a lot of our influencer work is just what you would think is we contract with an influencer or creator. We want you to promote the event that you're coming to say that you're coming to the event so that little blocks of people will show up to see them. And I think that golf and, again, baseball, where Savannah Bananas sits sort of beside MLB or where they are, you've got NASCAR and you've got this group like Cletus is building. And I want you to go research him. You guys will be fascinated at how smart he's been about building this whole thing. Is that is where the future's going. That's where we're going. That's you look at like golf again. Grant Horvat, who's played a lot of rounds with Phil Mickelson. He's being invited to PGA Tour tournaments now to show up because they know a huge audience is going to come behind him. And they're having their own invitationals. Look at what Bryson DeChambeau has put into his YouTube channel. I'm fascinated by it. Again, I'm a marketing nerd. But I think that these people who have built these communities and then they show up to maybe a major sanctioned event, but they're bringing this massive community to the table. And it's kind of revolutionizing marketing.
It's fascinating. And one of the things that I like about it is it's allowing the unlocking of personalities. People can actually show the fun side, because for a very long period of time, you had kind of this top-down this is our image. Baseball's done that in the past.
There was like good guys and bad guys.
Good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
But even, we saw the Yankees. You can have a beard now. We're unlocking the personalities of some of these people, and it is just adding value.
Because it draws people in. I mean, people want to root for. It's why movies, documentaries, we see these things and it pulls us into a story. That's really what it is at the end of the day. It's storytelling. And you guys will go back, and people who are listening to this podcast will go research Cletus McFarland. You'll look at his YouTube channel. He's been telling stories about building cars for years. And it's all just built this huge snowball. And now he wants to race NASCAR, and all these people are coming to see him race. And it's remarkable.
It's absolutely kind of a level up, I think, in the marketing world, because everyone goes through droughts where they can't find new eyeballs,
right,
new clients, new customers. So the common sense thing is get these people who have a people group that you know nothing about,
right,
and they know nothing about you, bring them in. I think of like the Jake Paul stuff, boxing. Jake and Logan, those guys.
No, I mean, I watched the Tyson fight.
I did too. And I was miserable. I was miserable.
I was like, come on.
The first boxing fight that I hadn't watched one in probably 5 years.
Boxing marketing. Can I talk about this for a second? Boxing marketing fascinates me. Floyd Mayweather was the guy that I really watched. What he would do, and this is such a great model, so anybody can rip this model off. But Floyd used to do those Showtime or HBO documentaries of leading up to a fight, whether he's fighting Pacquiao or he's fighting Oscar De La Hoya. And what it was you had 4 or 5 chapters of a story of here's my camp and here's what's going on and here's the cameras and you're following me around, and you dive deeper into the story. And then guess what the last chapter is? It's the pay-per-view. right? To see the end of the story unfold, you have to buy the product. And I think that is a great storytelling marketing tactic. And I think now Jake Paul and Logan and all these they use that so beautifully of, I'm going to tell you all about, I'm going to get you involved, get you hooked into the story. And then the last chapter is to watch WrestleMania, is to watch the Tyson Paul fight, is to watch whatever. And it's brilliantly done. And actually NASCAR has benefited from that over the last couple of years. They came out with Full Speed on Netflix. And all of a sudden, people were more interested. There's more people showing up to the racetrack. There's more people watching the broadcast. Last year, this happened. So at the beginning of 2024, that came out, and now they're in season 2. And I think more people are going to buy in. It's good marketing to be a good storyteller. And
well, I am no longer getting any Jake Paul stuff ever, because he burned me on this one. I mean, I know that it's promotion, sure, right? I know what they're doing. I totally get it. It's a show essentially, but they kind of messed up a little bit, because the Mike Tyson that I saw training for that fight is not the Mike Tyson that was in that ring that night.
Yes, absolutely.
They messed up on that, because you don't have to be an avid sports fan to use your 2 eyeballs to see this beast of a man training
and then pulling back
and then get in the ring and act like he's never been in there before.
Right.
Like it was too obvious. So, Jake, messed up, man.
Yeah, the good
never
part,
have me again.
The good part about the Floyd Mayweather fights was that the chapter at the end of the story was true, or it was going to unfold the way it was going to unfold, and obviously Floyd won all of his matches, but you tuned in, you were seeing an authentic boxing match. And yeah, I mean, who knows what happened with Jake and Mike, and everybody made money. And I think Jake has done this brilliantly. He figured out boxing is the best sport in the world to make money in a really short amount of time. Because how long is a boxing match? It's like 20 minutes tops. I mean, literally of the competitive time frame. And you're making 20 million or 50 million or 100 million. I mean, Jake Paul was probably like, okay, we're going to make the most amount of money for the least amount of work, or the least amount of seconds worked. Obviously, he has to be a content creator and lead them down the path to a great product at the last chapter of the story. But still, it was boxing and boxing marketing and boxing money. It's crazy. Yeah. Sorry to get off topic here.
No, I think it's absolutely true in the marketing world. But the storytelling it's so important. And it's where we're getting news stories. We've gone through this period of time, we've seen this backlash against Hollywood of another sequel, another remake, another whatever it is.
Oh, we're 20-year-old number 2, like Happy Gilmore 2 is coming out.
Right. We're going to do a live action of a cartoon.
Right.
We've seen these stories, but in this day and age where we're craving new stories, the new kind of media streams and everything else are allowing them to get out versus being controlled by executives in, Hollywood or Vegas or wherever it is.
That's right.
And we crave it.
Yes.
Even when it's bad, there's, what is it, the expression, there's no bad marketing type thing. So, but it's really unbelievable to see the impact that it has. And I'm glad that we're able to be part of it and being here.
Yeah. I think what you guys are doing is really smart here. I don't know if you want to cut this, you can, but I think everybody should take their lead from, what we're doing here or what you're doing at your business. There's a story to be told. There's a podcast to be recorded. People want to get to know other people. And if you put up a wall and you say, no, we're just going to market our product, that's it, or our products, and that's it. No, market your people. Market your people, because that's what people want to do, business with other people. And they are desperately want to make a connection and like other people, know, like, and trust. And so I love what you guys are doing here, because I think it's only going to have positive effects on your business. And I think I want to encourage everybody out there that if you can lean into content, go follow Gary Vaynerchuk. If you don't like cussing, maybe don't follow him, but go follow Gary Vaynerchuk. He has been preaching this for years. Let people into your story, showcase your people, draw them. More content you put out, the more you're going to draw them in, the more business you're going to end up doing. But do it from an authentic place. Do it from, I want to give more value to my customer. I want to give more value to my audience. And if you do that, you're going to grow your business. Look at the Savannah Bananas. Look at Jesse Cole. He's been doing it for years, and but his flywheel is make the content, grow new fans. The fans then come to an event. At the event, we make content, and it just goes around and around, and they just keep making more content and bring more fans in to that story and to that fun. And they have 80,000 people showing up to football stadiums to see him play baseball. It's pretty incredible.
I want to point out this fun fact. Peter, how do you feel? I feel like the roles are reversed here because usually it's me versus two very analytical, numbers-driven gentlemen.
And I'm on more of your right brain side today. Yeah.
How do you feel right now, Peter? Do you feel vulnerable?
I love it. Like I'm a spreadsheet person. I'm not going to deny it, but I'm a baseball person. I'm a big Gary Vee fan. You know, so when you mention him, and I'm big, one of the big things that we did, whether it was with our podcast or we just built the new building, and we decided very intentionally that financial management is very stuffy. Mm-hmm. And we were like, we've got to show our personality. One, because there's a certain level of every product now with AI and with robotics that's going to get commoditized. Mm-hmm. But the thing that you can't commoditize is human connection.
Absolutely.
And you've got to be able to work with people you trust. But no, it's fun for me to sit here and think, because I think, the three of us could probably sit here and just ham it up all day on things that could happen. I'm already seeing I see my seats right over there for the game later. But playing a hockey thing.
If we need to go down there and check it out and see how close to concessions you are and stuff. Yeah.
But no, it's good.
Well, we like to do something called the lightning round.
Yeah, let's go.
These are probably three of the most important questions we'll ask you today.
Okay.
I like to preface with that.
I'm sorry. I have to also preface this by saying whatever question my wife asked me is the most important question today. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know it's the most important.
That is the right answer.
All right. The second then.
I'm just
Fair
kidding.
enough. So,
just kidding.
Drew, what do you consider the best breakfast cereal of all time?
Oh, God. That's such a good question. Life.
Okay.
This is bizarre to me. I started asking people this a long time ago.
We haven't gotten the same answer.
No, we haven't.
That's fantastic that you haven't gotten the same answer.
We've not gotten the same answer. And people name all these cereals that I've forgotten about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life. When's the last time you had Life?
I'll go with like a top three. It'd be Life, Frosted Mini Wheats, and then probably Captain Crunch or Frosted Flakes somewhere in there.
Man. But now you're talking.
Okay.
Now you're in my wheelhouse.
I love that question though.
We've had some interesting ones. If you asked my wife, she'd be Crackling Oat Bran. And, and you're like, when was the last time you had Crackling Oat Bran? Type thing.
But then you're like, no, you can have any of them.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to pick.
I knew I was maybe going to be in marketing at some point when they got me as a kid. I thought grape nuts were grapes, and I had my mom buy it, and she was like, Drew, this is not what you think it is. And I was just like, no, it says grapes, and it's a purple box, and it's got to have grapes, and I love grapes, all that stuff. And then I got it, and it was awful, and I was like, okay, I learned my lesson there. Marketing did it to me.
That was too easy.
Okay.
We'll make it a little more challenging. Drew, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Probably flight. Anytime that I've ever, and it's been very, very infrequent, I've only got to fly on a private plane a few times, and it's usually because I just happen to be on a trip with a more famous person, and I'm just the attaché or something. But every time I've done that, I'm like, man, this is the way to go. And so getting somewhere quickly, I think that would be mine. That's flight.
Thank you everyone for listening, and a special thank you to Drew Bedard and his team here at Bristol Motor Speedway. Thanks, Drew, for being a great host and a great guest. Don't forget, the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds will play at Bristol Motor Speedway on August 2nd at 7 p.m. in what will be the first Major League Baseball game in Tennessee ever. History will be made at the last great Coliseum. Go to bristolmotorspeedway.com to get your tickets. Also, check us out at afiadvisors.com. Follow us on all of our social channels, and we will catch you next time.